Let us pray. Our Father, we confidently ask strength and encouragement in our service of you through our service of others. We ask for your gift of wisdom to guide us in making good laws and good decisions for the present and future of Alberta. Amen.
Introduction of visitors. Presenting petitions.
The Honourable Member for Edmonton Mayfield.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, I beg leave to present to the Assembly a petition signed by over 300 Edmontonians from one single Catholic parish. They do petition this legislature to uphold the right of the separate Catholic school system and to show its firm commitment to the Catholic education of Alberta.
Good. The Member for Edmonton Beverly Belmont.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Beg leave to introduce 1,104 signatures on a petition urging the government not to alter funding arrangements for seniors' housing until seniors have been consulted.
Here, here. The Honourable Member for Edmonton McClung.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I beg leave to present a petition including still hundreds more names of those people in support of the Misericordia Hospital being a full-service active hospital.
The Honourable Member for Red Deer South.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As is the duty of a member of this legislature, I beg leave to introduce a petition containing approximately 560 names expressing concern over exclusion of literature from school curriculum.
Reading and receiving petitions.
The Honourable Member for Edmonton Mill Woods.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would ask that the petition I presented on March 1st in favor of student loans now be read and received by the Assembly.
We call on the Legislative Assembly to urge the Government of Alberta to abandon the proposal to privatize student loans and make the entire student aid system more responsive to student needs.
Member for Spruce Grove, Sturgeon, and Albert.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd request that the two petitions I presented on March 1st and March 3rd concerning keeping the Misericordia Hospital open as a full care treatment hospital, I would appreciate if that could be read now.
We, the undersigned, petition the legislature to urge the government to maintain the Misericordia Hospital as a full-service active hospital and continue to serve the west end of Edmonton and surrounding area. We, the undersigned, petition the Legislative Assembly to urge the government to maintain the Misericordia Hospital as a full-service active hospital and continue to serve the west end of Edmonton, Spruce Grove, and surrounding area.
The Honourable Member for Edmonton Ellerslie.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would ask that the petition I presented on March the 2nd in support of keeping the Grey Nuns Hospital open as an active care treatment centre now be read and received.
We, the undersigned, petition the Legislative Assembly of Alberta to urge the government to maintain the Grey Nuns Hospital in Mill Woods as a full-service active hospital and continue to serve the southeast end of Edmonton and surrounding area. Presenting reports by standing and special committees. Notices of motions.
The Honourable Deputy Government House Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Pursuant to Standing Order 34-2A, I am giving notice that tomorrow I'll be moving the written questions to stand and retain their places on the order paper. I also wish to give notice that I will be moving that motions for return stand and retain their places on the order paper with the exception of motions for return 154, 169, 170, 171, 172, 173, and 177.
Good. Open government.
Introduction of bills.
Will the Minister of Agriculture, Food and Rural Development.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I request leave to introduce Bill 14, being the Agricultural Statutes Repeal Act 1994. The purpose of this bill is to repeal 9 acts jurisdiction of the Minister of Agriculture, Food and Rural Development.
The Honourable Minister of Agriculture, Food and Rural Development has moved first reading of Bill 14, Agricultural Statutes Repeal Act 1994. All those in favor of first reading, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, please say no. Carried.
Bill number 14, Agricultural Statutes Repeal Act 1994, introduced by the Honourable Mr. Paskowski, is now read a first time. Tabling returns and reports.
The Honourable Minister of Transportation and Utilities.
Mr. Speaker, I am pleased to file with the Legislature the annual report for 92-93 Alberta Public Safety Services, and also file with the Legislature a copy of the Alberta Resources Railroad sale to CNR.
The Honourable Member for Edmonton Centre.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I would like to table copies of letters to the President of the Canadian Polish Youth Friendship Society of Edmonton. These are addressed to the Premier and express support for community schools in Alberta. The community asked me to present these as they anxiously await the replies to the 1,500 other letters they've already submitted to the Premier.
The Honourable Member for Calgary Fish Creek.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would like to table 111 postcards from Calgary Fish Creek constituency opposing the education cutbacks.
Introduction of guests.
The Honourable Minister of Health.
Mr. Speaker, it is my pleasure today to introduce to you and through you to members of the Assembly a number of employees of the community-based diagnostic laboratory, Calgary Medical Labs. Each one of these have visited with members in their area of service area. And their in these meetings, Mr. Speaker, are to promote and create better understanding of the importance of the issues that face the lab sector. They traveled to the capital city this morning. The group leaders are Dr. Larson and Daphne Kaczynski. Mr. Speaker, I would ask the members to rise in the members gallery and ask all members to receive a very cordial welcome.
The Honourable Member for Edmonton Rutherford.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's my pleasure to introduce to you and through you to members of the Legislative Assembly 26 brilliant students from the grade school St. Teresa in the riding of Edmonton Rutherford. They're accompanied today by their teacher, Mrs. M. Armstrong, and 3 parents, Mrs. Linda Dabani, Mrs. Rosemarie Hamnitsky, and Mrs. Marlene Leddy. They're in the public gallery. If they would stand up and receive the warm welcome of this House.
The Honourable Member for Spruce Grove, Sturgeon, St. Albert.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to introduce to you and through you to members of this Assembly, Norval Horner. I'm sure many of our members know him. He's not new to politics. He's presently the principal at Sturgeon Composite School in Nemeo. He worked very hard for me to get me this position. I don't know if that's a good sign or a bad sign that he wanted me out of there, but it is great pleasure that we welcome him here today, so please receive the warm welcome of this Assembly.
The Honourable Member for Edmonton McClung.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's my pleasure, Mr. Speaker, to introduce to the members of the Legislative Assembly Madeline Ray. She is a grade 6 student at the Linwood Elementary School. She is an especially good student who is here today, spending the day at the legislature to determine exactly how the legislature works. And I know that you and each member of the Legislative Assembly will be very, very interested to see the results of that study. I would ask that she rise in the gallery and receive the welcome of the members of the Legislative Assembly.
The honourable member for Edmonton Strathcona.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to introduce to you and through you to the Legislative Assembly 18 young and bright students from the Allendale Elementary Junior High School, which is in the constituency of Edmonton Strathcona. Accompanying them are teacher Larry Wadsworth and a parent by the name of Tracy Knutson. I'd like to ask that they stand and we give them a warm welcome. Thank you.
Now, member for Edmonton Norwood.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I am delighted, absolutely delighted, to introduce 15 pioneers that helped build this country and this province. They are residents and neighbors of the Vasilka Seniors Home located in my riding. They are accompanied by Reverend and Mrs. Brandabura. I would ask that they rise and receive the warm welcome of this assembly.
Yes.
Honourable member for Calgary Buffalo? No? No?
Ministerial statements. Oral question period.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, Chem Biomed lost the taxpayers of Alberta $37 million before Chem Biomed was absorbed by the Alberta Research Council. Some of the products invented by Chem Biomed are now on the verge of making money. We have uncovered evidence that some scientists at the Research Council are attempting to profit from those products by setting up their own company and selling those licenses or those products. My questions are to the member responsible and the chairman of the Research Council. Will the member tell the House exactly what is happening at the Research Council on this issue?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. If I could give you some pertinent facts, the ARC has draft plans in a number of areas that would see the ARC spin technology and activities to the private sector. These areas include certain areas in the biotechnology area, electronics testing area, gas and oil testing, and others. This is a spin-out. The spin-outs and the strategy of spin-out has been discussed in detail with the board and is consistent with the government trying to stimulate certain activities and get out of other activities. The biotechnology department, which this specific question relates to, has with corporate concurrence adopted a spin-off strategy. And I'm pleased to be part of that, because what's happening is we are in a situation where we are creating jobs and creating wealth for Alberta and Albertans.
Well, maybe the wealth is going to the wrong place, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to file 4-copy business plan of Aspen Biotechnology. It contains evidence of a conflict of interest at the Alberta Research Council. Mr. Speaker, my second question to the honourable member then is this. Will he inform this Assembly as to exactly what is happening with respect to conflict of interest charges, specifically these issues of conflict of interest at the Council?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The plan that is referred to is a draft business plan, I believe, that was drafted for and created for Alberta Research Council. Its aim is to assess the potential for a spin-off in its fermentation facility. Now, I would say that this draft business plan is only weeks old. It has not been assessed by the board and should, I must insist, be considered as a draft business plan and a draft business plan only. It's clear that's what it is. Thank you.
Mr. Speaker, the honourable member continues to dodge this issue. The issue is conflict of interest. Will the honourable member stand and tell Albertans whether there's something wrong with scientists at the Research Council benefiting, perhaps benefiting at the expense of the taxpayers of Alberta. That's the issue. Well, Mr. Speaker, we presently have an independent review underway. As I've said quite clearly, this independent review will look at these various matters that have been raised, and we hope to have a report by the end of this week. And the independent reviewer will advise us as to what further actions we should be taken. I want once again very clearly indicate it is an independent review from some outside the council that is looking at the business practices in this particular department.
The honourable member for Calgary Northwest. The honourable member for Calgary Northwest.
Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to continue on with this spin-out that the chairman in charge of the ARC is proposing. I think it's more like a burnout. But with respect to Chem Biomed, the licenses in question deal with 27 products. And my question to the chairman responsible for the Alberta Research Council is simply this. Is it the intention of this government to hand over the $37 million worth of research done at at Chem Biomed to 3 ARC employees?
No.
Well, succinct if nothing else. Mr. Speaker, my supplementary question. Since Aspen Biotech in the document tabled by the Leader of the Opposition projects $172 million in potential sales on these products, will this member, as his responsibility for the ARC, ensure that Albertans get their $37 million investment in Chem Biomed back?
Perhaps the honourable member opposite wasn't listening to my response. This is a draft business plan. A draft business plan, and should be only considered as a draft business plan, which will go to the board, an independent board that operates at arm's length from the government to make decisions. And I would point out further that we have previous experience in spinning off companies. October 19th, 1993, a news release which we spun off into the private sector company that is now creating jobs and wealth for Albertans.
I guess from that answer, he's not concerned about the $37 million of Alberta taxpayers' money. So my final supplementary question is, why would the government pursue this privatization just when we are about to finally get back some of our $37 million in research?
Certainly, Mr. Speaker, this government wants to create jobs and wealth for Albertans. And in any contract, in any situation where we spin off technology, the ARC will receive royalties back, and hence the taxpayers will receive royalties back from any spin-off company.
Good answer. Honourable member for Sherwood Park.
Mr. Speaker, the Alberta Research Council issued a press release today attempting to give facts on the escape of the genetically altered yeast from its Edmonton facility. The fact, Mr. Speaker, is that this experiment was allowed to continue out of control for 6 days. The fact, Mr. Speaker, is that the Alberta Research Council decided there was no health hazard since there was no evidence of an escape. And the fact is, Mr. Speaker, that other accidents and spills have occurred in the past at this facility. My first question to the chairman of the Alberta Research Council: how can this facility conduct genetic engineering experiments when it has no way of testing for the escape of genetically altered organisms?
Good question. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In regards to the release that the member was talking about earlier this year, basically what happened there was some scrubbers were removed by 2 employees or several employees without the permission and against management decision. And we have had an investigation by the Department of Environment in Alberta, Environment Canada, as well as Occupational Health and Safety, and those organizations were pleased with the progress and pleased with the situation and pleased with the way the ARC handled that particular release.
Yeah.
That is
Thank you,
so
Mr.
lame.
Speaker. The fact is that we contacted Environment Canada. Mr. Speaker, my supplementary question to the Chairman of the Alberta Research Council. Will the Chairman of the Research Council undertake today to provide details of an accidental spill of genetically altered bacteria into the sewer system and the dumping of a fungus outside the ARC building that employees were told to call sawdust?
Well, Speaker, I unfortunately am not familiar with those two incidents, but I will certainly find out and bring a report back.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, my second supplementary to the Minister of Environmental Protection. Is the Alberta Research Council's approach to safety consistent with the government's new self-policing on pollution policy?
Mr. Speaker, clearly that question is just intended to get a rise out of this side of the House. Now, the honourable member opposite is well aware that we have enforcement officers in the field that we examine on a very regular basis emissions, and we demand, Mr. Speaker, that the industry in this province comply with our clean air and our clean water requirements and levels that we have established through consultation with the scientific community. Now, we will continue to take a proactive role, as we did in this situation that has been before the House today, where we have come to the conclusion, after a review, that there is no adverse impact and therefore no charge is appropriate.
The honourable member for Calgary North Hill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question today is to the Premier. The Calgary Flames Hockey Club has taken out full-page advertisements clarifying the aspects of the proposed renovations of the Olympic Saddledome. The question is it government policy that the proposal as outlined falls within the guidelines of the federal infrastructure program?
Well, it's hard to say until we see the proposal in detail, but it's my understanding of the federal infrastructure program that if indeed the project involves a publicly owned facility and the improvements to take place are in the public interest, then it would qualify. I have also said that under no circumstances would luxury boxes to be privately owned, in my mind, qualify under that program.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Has or will the Premier communicate that position to the Mayor and City Council?
As a matter of fact, the Mayor and I had a discussion about this Sunday night, and he agrees that if it is indeed defined as legitimate municipal public infrastructure, then it should qualify for the infrastructure program and funding under that program. If it's for private use, i.e. condominiums or luxury boxes, then it ought not.
No supplement.
Mark McMurray.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Premier wants to go on TV for honest chats with Albertans. Now, that's not necessary. All he has to do is be honest and open in here. Mr. Speaker, the chairman of the Alberta Research Council says he won't release the report into wrongdoings at that organization until he has a chance to review it. My question, Mr. Speaker, is to the Premier. Mr. Premier, will you stand up now and assure the House that you will release that report the moment it is available?
Well, Mr. Speaker, the honourable member, the chairman of the Alberta Research Council, said that there is a review, an investigation of this underway as we speak, an independent review. I understand that someone totally removed from the ARC, but very well qualified, has been retained to undertake this review. I would imagine once the review is completed, that the report will go to the chairman and the board, and they will decide at that particular time what to do with the report.
Yeah. Well, you know, mutagens in the air and liberals in your hair, Mr. Premier, and it's only Tuesday. It's only Tuesday, Mr. Premier. To the Premier, Mr. Premier, will you alter the policy of your government and report all biotechnical incidents, irrespective of whether or not the inside group says they're harmless?
Well, these are reported as a matter of routine by the Minister of Environmental Protection. Whenever there are infractions, whenever there are control orders, whenever action is taken by the Minister of Environmental Protection, these matters are reported. Now, it would be awfully nice. It would be awfully nice if the Liberals know, these Liberals who purport to be in my hair, if they know of these things going on, rather than keep them little secrets and all to themselves, I think it would be in the interest of the public to report them to the Minister of Environment.
Sure. Right on. Yeah, we did.
He's flustered now.
Well, I would have thought the Premier would have been aware of the reports previously made in this area, but Mr. Premier, while the report is going on and being studied, will you move with lightning speed to order an independent review of the laboratory procedures at that council until the results are implemented?
Mr. Speaker, you obviously didn't hear the answer of the provided by the Minister of Environmental Protection. The Minister said that there was found to be nothing that could be construed to be harmful to the public, therefore no action was taken at that particular time. Now, if this honourable member has some information that perhaps would lead to the Honourable Minister of Environmental Protection to believe the contrary, then I think he should provide that information to the Honourable Minister.
For Calgary, McCall. Good for you.
Mr. Speaker, my question is to the Minister of Advanced Education and Career Development. Last Friday, statistics released the employment figures for the month of February. Due to the rapid change and restructuring our economy is undergoing, I would like to know from the Minister responsible for labor market development as to the unemployment situation in our province.
Mr. Speaker, as I stated last time when these statistics came out, month-to-month statistics are not a comparison that you can rely on for an annual trend. As the Premier has stated before, it is much more valuable to compare statistics on a year-by-year basis. However, having said that, unemployment in Alberta did drop last month. In fact, seasonally adjusted unemployment rate declined from 9.3 to 8.8. And compared to February of last year, Mr. Speaker, compared to February of last year, the level of employment has increased by 32,000 or 2.6. And Mr. Speaker, that's good news for Alberta.
Last month, there was a lot of discussion that full-time positions, particularly full-time positions for women, were declining. Does the Minister have any indication that that trend is valid?
Mr. Speaker, full-time employment was up in this province in February by 9,400 people, while part-time employment increased by just 400. Males working in full-time jobs actually dropped by 1,300. However, full-time employment for females increased by 10,600 month over month.
Discrimination. In what sectors are we experiencing employment?
Farms. Mr. Speaker, I'm happy to report that the private sector accounted for the province's overall employment increase last month. Strong gains in business services and retail trade were the overriding sectors for increases. It's important to note that the areas demonstrating the strongest growth are those sectors that would be hit hardest by a provincial sales tax, and I hope that comes home to the members across the way.
The honourable member for Edmonton Beverly Belmont.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Senior subsidized housing rents and extended care benefit rates are skyrocketing and seniors are frightened of the future. My question is to the minister responsible for seniors housing. Why are you changing the present proven system of subsidized housing by deregulating rents?
Because
Mr. Speaker, we have around 23,000 units in the province of Alberta that are considered senior housing. That's out of 240,000 seniors. We have about 15,000 of those that are in what we call apartments and manors and fourplexes that are funded by a 70-30 split with the federal government, 70% the federal government and 30% our dollars. We operate those under a cost recovery mechanism based on a formula set out by the federal government, which set the threshold at 30% of the senior's income. Therefore, if you were going into a manor and your income for a month was $900, you would pay $300. Over the years, Alberta was set at 25%, so we didn't go to the maximum threshold. Recently, when I was in Toronto at a ministers' conference involving all the provinces and the federal government, we made a decision to move to 30% because indeed the federal government said when we're funding 70% of this in this fiscal times, you should move to our threshold of 30%. All provinces in Canada are moving to that threshold. Therefore, that is why we're moving to a threshold of 30%, 28% next year, 30% the following year. Now, on the other 7,000, to 8,000, which are senior lodges, that's the only component of senior housing this province controls. We have some of them that were also by the federal government in a 70-30 split that had a percentage of the beds at rent geared to income. The Lodge Foundation says in order to continue the delivery of these programs to seniors, we should look at deregulating the rent and allowing them, for certain circumstances, serve those that need by balancing off a lower rent rate, but also raising the rent rate for those that can afford it, or else we're going to lose the maintenance and continuation of these 8,000 beds. I'll wait for your supplemental and I'll expand some more.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Why did you wait until after you put the seniors' benefit in place to start talking deregulating rents?
Mr. Speaker, we've had a consultation with all housing registries and the foundations for over a year now. The three-year plan that was tabled back indicated all of this that I just made to the Assembly as far as going to the 30% threshold, as well as looking at a new housing act that would look at flexibility and deregulation of rents. I have traveled around the province to the various regions and given talks over the last year and have indicated at every turn that we would be looking at a deregulated rent program in consultation and recommendation by the housing authorities. There are over 430 housing authorities and 59 lodge boards in this province. So to indicate that why did we wait till this other program came out, that is a misrepresentation. Indeed, we haven't. We've been up front, and the meeting that we had with the federal government was several months ago, and when I came back, there was a news release made to that effect. I guess it's the media and the opposition are just catching up with it today.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Minister, will you stop playing politics and reveal your real agenda for seniors housing here and now? Seniors need to know.
Mr. Speaker, we've been as open as we can with the seniors. I want to indicate that when the headlines state that all seniors are in jeopardy of their housing, remember that 70% of the seniors own their own home. And another 54,000 seniors in this province rent their accommodations. We provide 23,000 units, 8,000 that are lodge, and the other 15,000 apartments and rental units. We by no means address the accommodation for seniors in this, and as we move to 500,000 seniors by the year 2016 or whatever that date be, but we're fast moving there, the amount of accommodation controlled by the government will be minuscule to the problem that we have. We will then be following the individual seniors with resources called monies so that they can access a fair market system, but can be soft-sided to it by a rent subsidy. We cannot continue to build the bricks and mortars for 500,000 seniors by the year 2015.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My questions this afternoon are to the Minister of Advanced Education. Mr. Speaker, the Minister has been quoted as saying that post-secondary programs graduating students with high loan default rates will be reviewed by the Students' Finance Board. While my constituents in Highwood understand Alberta's Student Assistance Program, like all programs funded by FAIR, must be accountable, it is not clear which programs will be affected. So my question to the Minister, which programs will have student loan assistance removed due to high default rates?
Mr. Speaker, it's true, in fact, that the Student Finance Board has been monitoring default rates in high-risk programs over the last 4 years, since 1990. In our business plan, we made a commitment to withdraw student support for those programs that have graduates with excessive default rates. For example, graduates of truck driving and hairdressing have had difficulty in meeting repayment obligations on student loans. They've gone as high as 68% default for the truck driving programs, and hairdressing at some 48%. It's not because it's not necessarily because students are delinquent in these areas. It's likely because they're trained for a certain job, and when they graduate, they are obviously having a hard time making the student loan payments. If an institution is offering a program in hairdressing or truck driving that has acceptable default rates, then certainly they'll continue to receive the student loans for their students.
Well, Minister, does this also mean that if a student then is studying in a program that isn't considered a job preparation, will that student loan and that program be cut off?
Mr. Speaker, no, it doesn't mean that at all. Many students in this province take programs for reasons other than finding a job, perhaps just the pursuit of knowledge. As long as they pay student loan, we're not concerned with what program they take. It's not the intent of the change to determine what a student should study or should not study. As for instance, in the universities, we're not finding that those students who are in the philosophy program or the studying poetry are in high default rate. They're not. And so that's not the target. The target is to deal with defaults. And so our objective is to withdraw student assistance where programs with graduates are excessive.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, will the Minister confirm that these loan default rates may be in fact stated at higher rates than necessary when you consider how easy it is for a bank to call in a fully guaranteed student loan, even though students may go in default, as it's happened in my constituency, by accident and even mistake?
Mr. Speaker, I've said many times that the current repayment system that we have is not good for the student, and it's not good for the taxpayer. The only group that it's good for is the banks under the present circumstance. And so, because the loan is backed by the government, there is no incentive for the banks to work with the student and treat them like a customer. or a client like they would treat anyone in this assembly. So I'm working hard to reform the repayment system in such a way that will allow students more options, more flexibility in repaying their loans that they owe to the Student Finance Board. If students have a repayment system that is more sensitive to the income they earn, I'm confident that defaults will decrease in this province.
For Edmonton Glenara.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, today is the day that the health region boundaries are to be recommended to the Minister of Health. Now, these boundaries are supposed to be based on community input, but, Mr. Speaker, we have our doubts about that. To the chairman of the Health Plan Coordination Project, how many submissions did you receive, and how do you know that the information gathered is at all representative of all of those people concerned?
Good question. Order the honourable member for Little Bow.
Bow Valley, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. With the recommendations, we received over 150 recommendations from everyone from town councils, city councils, hospital boards, health unit boards, mental health authorities, representative from all areas around the province, and each and every one of their letters was looked at and their input was utilized in attempting to draw a map.
Well, that's great, Mr. Speaker. Well, then, to the member, will you table your report and copies of all of those submissions in the legislature so that all Albertans can have an opportunity to comment on your recommendations?
Good point.
Mr. Speaker, our job in our health planning coordination project was to provide a map of health units or of health areas to the Minister of Health, and we will proceed to do that. And what the Minister of Health decides to do with that map and what the Minister of Health decides to do with those input is up to her.
So it's no, and it's no real public consultation. Well, then maybe, Mr. Speaker, the chairman will at least tell us how many regions that he's recommended to the minister so that all Albertans can begin to plan for to impose.
Good point. Good question.
Less than 500.
Mr. Speaker, with regards to the comment about no public input, I would like to remind the Speaker of something that happened in Oregon when the Oregon system went through their restructuring. At that time, they had public input of around 1,500 people. And that work is recognized across the United States for its input. In our roundtables, we talked to 5,500 people in the open roundtables, and approximately another 1,500, I repeat, Mr. Speaker, 1,500 people. I repeat, Mr. Speaker, around 1,500 people in the closed session the next day. There was absolutely no one turned back from that. The recommendations that were brought forward from the people in the community were looked at and essentially have been decided on from their input. There was plenty of input from the public. Our job as a health planning coordination project is to suggest the regional boundaries to the Minister of Health. What the Minister of Health decides to do with those boundaries is up to her.
Good job. The honourable member for Bow Valley. The honourable member for Bow Valley.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I guess I have to switch tracks here now. As a parent, I am pleased with the level of education my child is receiving in the present system.
Yes.
Restructuring was not meant to negatively impact the classroom or increase pupil-teacher ratio. My question is for the Minister of Education. Why are school boards making an announcement of a large number of teacher layoffs?
Mr. Speaker, it is quite clear that in terms of the directions that we've set out for the education system, we are focusing the resources that are available in education at the school and at the classroom level. We are dealing with site-based management. We are addressing and pointing out a direction in terms of reducing the costs of management and administration. Albeit, Mr. Speaker, education had to be part of solving our overall fiscal challenge in this province. But I would like to point out something, Mr. Speaker, and that is But in addition to the two comments I've just made, another direction that we have out there is the reduction in the compensation package in terms of wages and salaries within the education system by 5%. And when you combine all the recommendations and directions in our plan as a package, Mr. Speaker, and you consider that the net reduction this year in terms of funds available for education is in the 8 or 9% range, we have certainly made an overall effort to focus resources at the classroom level, to minimize layoffs, focus the money where the students are.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Again, speaking as a parent, I appreciate the job teachers do in educating my children. How can we as a government maximize their potential and flexibility in educating our children?
Well, Mr. Speaker, once again, in terms of the plans that have been set out in restructuring education in this province, well, Mr. Speaker, we are, as a government, interested in providing professional responsibility for teachers and providing flexibility so that they can get their job done. And it doesn't seem that the people across the way are interested in that or have any other ideas. So I would like to get back to the honourable question. In terms of moving more decision-making to the school, Mr. Speaker, in terms of site-based management, in terms of making sure that, yes, teachers are going to be responsible for and accountable for what they produce in the way of performance in the classroom, but also there to have professional flexibility and the ability to apply the methods and their expertise to education. And I think those things are very important to teachers and things that we intend to pursue.
Honourable Member for Edmonton Centre.
Here's an education question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In order to be designated community schools by the Department of Education, parents, teachers, administrators, and community representatives must agree to adopt a community school philosophy and develop a charter outlining the purpose of the school. My question to the Premier is, since these schools have already signed a charter, why don't, instead of cutting the funding, simply designate them as charter schools under your new system and fund them that way?
As I understand it, Mr. Speaker, and I'm sure the Honourable Minister would like to supplement, that charter schools will be introduced on a pilot basis. We have decided as a matter of policy that we would stop providing direct funding to so-called designated community schools and virtually make every school in this province a community school, with some schools being given the opportunity to enter into a charter with the government. But I'd like to have the Honourable Minister supplement.
Well, first of all, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to note the honourable member's favourable interest in charter schools. But on the issue which I think is the issue, Mr. Speaker, and that is community school funding, we have approximately 1,800 schools in this province. In our overall direction as a government and in terms of the Education Department's business plan, we are focusing on site-based management, community involvement, coordination of services. Our goal is to have community involvement, the community concept out there for schools all across this province, and that's the direction that we're taking. In terms of the funding for this year, it is important to note, as the Honourable Premier has pointed out, that we had 66 charter schools in different types of communities, community schools, right. We had 66 community schools that did receive special funding, and in a time where we have to apply the funds that are available very carefully to the schools in this province, we felt that it was important to spread the funding across all schools in the province, many of which, as I've said, Mr. Speaker, are pursuing the goals of community schools.
Mr. Speaker, my calculation is about $5,000 per school. The Minister seems as confused about charter schools as the Premier has been. I'd like to ask the Premier or the Minister, or whoever else would like to answer, Why do they not do a value for money audit so we can see exactly what community schools deliver? It's in your business plan. Why you didn't do these value for money audits before making the decision to cut funding to community schools?
Well, first of all, who's going to pay for all these efficiency audits and these money? Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, basically, Mr. Speaker, well, just if they think that that you need to have an efficiency audit to get rid of 40 non-operating school boards, then I think that that would be money that would not be very wisely spent, because it just makes sense. If you don't have any schools, you ought not to have school boards, so we got rid of them. Right. We're also saying that we want to restructure and reduce the administration of the education system. That's why we're reducing the number of boards in this province from 140 to 60. We have also said that we want to literally make every school in this province a community school. We want to create a scenario where the teachers and the principals and the students and the parents are involved in running their schools. Right. We want to reduce the burden of administration and put a more human face on the education system in this province.
Now it's proved the Premier doesn't know anything in these schools. I'd like to ask...
Yeah, he proved it.
I'd like to ask the Premier, has he ever examined any numbers that show the volunteers in the designated community schools compared to volunteers in non-designated community schools? There's a big difference and you should know it.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I'm proud to say that I'm a member of the Friends of Alex Taylor, which is probably the best example in this province of a community school. And this is a school, Mr. Speaker, this is a school with a principal who says we don't want to depend on the government. We want to be able to develop our own resources, to go out into the business community, to involve the business community, to involve parents, to involve supporters in supporting the kinds of programs that have made that school one of the most successful community schools in the province with a minimum amount of government expenditure.
The honourable member for Calgary Montrose. Order. Order. The honourable member for Calgary Montrose. Order. The honourable member. Order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Order. The honourable member for Calgary Montrose.
Wait till they're quiet. Wait till they're quiet.
Order. The honourable member for Calgary Montrose.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Yesterday afternoon, the Premier tabled a report on his trade mission to Asia. During budget estimates for Executive Council and the Department of Federal and Intergovernmental Affairs, the Premier was asked to identify tangible results of his mission. Can you outline which specific Alberta industry were the main focus of his mission?
Well, basically, Mr. Speaker, it was the purpose of our mission to certainly go to Asia, Korea, Japan, China, Hong Kong, and Taiwan to sell the Alberta Advantage. And there is no doubt about it that the Alberta Advantage is the advantage that we have relative to our strengths. And those strengths, of course, are in energy and agriculture and forestry and tourism and transportation. And basically these were the kinds of industries that we represented and participated with in those Asian countries.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Can the Premier identify which Alberta companies were able to take advantage of the Premier's mission to Asia?
Well, we participated with numerous companies from Alberta. And most of those companies were involved in the sectors that I talked about. We have developed a process of following up with these companies to identify through our contacts in these countries specific projects that might fit the requirements and the expertise of a particular Alberta company, and we'll be following up with those companies. If the honourable member wants me to give him a list of some of the companies we participated with and what they had to say, perhaps you can ask me that in a supplemental question. Right.
Can the Premier advise the House on his long-term plan to assist Alberta companies doing business in Alberta, in Asia? Sorry.
This is all part of a long-term plan. Of course, it has been 10 years since the Premier has been in Asia, and we felt that it was absolutely necessary to revisit certainly our sister provinces, Hokkaido and Heilongjiang, and Sapporo in Hokkaido, and Daching and Harbin in Heilongjiang, and to renew those acquaintances and indicate to the governments there that we're fully supportive of Alberta companies doing business. But I would just like to read just one or two, if you would allow me. This is from Doug McRae, the senior water and sanitation engineer.
Order. Perhaps there might be another occasion which this list might be able to be made. The honourable member for Calgary-Buffalo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, at the very time that many Albertans are out of work, many more Albertans have experienced wage rollbacks. This government will allow banks and other creditors to seize assets, and to do so without using a neutral government bailiff. This government, Mr. Speaker, is putting Albertans who owe money at risk of abuse by the repo man. My question, Mr. Speaker, is to the Minister of Justice. Mr. Minister, why have you decided to privatize bailiffs and ignore the Alberta Institute of Law Reform?
Mr. Speaker, the honourable member is probably referring to the Civil Enforcement Judgment Act, which he's anticipating will be introduced into the Assembly, and it is predicated on the Law Retute report.
Well, in fact, Mr. Minister, I'm referring to what bailiffs have been told, that the process is going to be privatized. I want to ask the Minister, on what basis does the Minister believe that debtors' rights will be protected as they currently are under a system of government bailiffs if we go with a privatized model, as he wishes to do?
Mr. Speaker, I think the Law Reform Institute report was a study of all of the law relating in other jurisdictions, as well as the history of how our debtor-creditor law has evolved, and in the numerous acts that it involves, in trying to bring it into one. And in fact, right now there's a preponderance of favoritism for the debtor and very little for the creditor, and I think this is setting the scales more equal and protecting both of them.
Speaker, since the Institute clearly rejected the model of private bailiffs, I want to ask the Minister, how much extra will local taxpayers at the municipal level have to pay, since they now will have to use private bailiffs and not be able to use the government bailiff service?
Mr. Speaker, I fail to understand how anybody employed by the government is not paid by the taxpayers of Alberta.
The honourable member for Lethbridge West. Order. The honourable member for Lethbridge West.
Order. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My questions today are to the provincial treasurer. The month of March, of course, denotes the...
Honourable member.
The month of March denotes, of course, the coming of spring, Mr. Speaker. But constituents have been phoning me to express concern about an annual feeding frenzy of buyers and sellers of supplies and programs as provincial departments dump the last of their budget dollars before March 31. Now, to the provincial treasurer, what mechanisms are in place to prevent this needless waste of money?
Well, Mr. Speaker, the honourable member makes a very good point, and several Albertans have said exactly that. Here we are on the Ides of March, Mr. Speaker, 16 days away from the end of the fiscal year, and the concern is that government departments and that even member legislative assembly may go a little fast to make sure they've spent their full allotment and their full quota. And that is not the way that this government does business, Mr. Speaker. We've spelled it out very clearly in our business plans exactly what is required in order to get the job done. We've spelled out very clearly what job it is that we want done. So I appreciate the honourable member and especially his constituents for sending a strong admonition and a strong caution to my colleagues in Cabinet, to government departments and deputy ministers, to ensure that all that is spent is necessary and that no more is spent than is absolutely necessary.
Mr. Speaker, supplemental then to the treasurer, when will we have a system in place to reward employees for the efficient use of money and other resources?
Well, I had the honor in my remarks, and I'm sure perhaps the Premier has commented on it as well, but the Personnel Administration Office is putting in place a Productivity Plus means of compensating employees who meet the standards and help us to meet the objectives spelled out in our business plans, to reward that performance, to recognize that the hard work and the diligence of our hard-working public service is recognized and properly remunerated, so that there is some sort of a bonus system. But I would remind the honourable member back to his initial question that when I look back in the accounts of the province in the last 4 years, there is one party in this assembly that has overspent their budget, and that is the Liberal Party of Alberta has overspent their budget.
Final step. Order. Order, please. Order. 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 Time for question period has expired. Mr. Clerk, the honourable member for Edmonton Mill Woods.
$5 billion they lost.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On August 7, 1851, the Prussian Minister of Education issued a decree that stated in part, kindergartens form a part of the Froebelian socialistic system, which is calculated to train the youth of the country to atheism. Such schools and kindergartens cannot be suffered to exist. A century and a half later, the Klein government has followed that Prussian example and decreed that kindergartens shall only half exist. What is most distressing in all this is the minimal understanding of the value of kindergarten. The power of Froebel's work was set in the notion that young children were in a very special phase of their life. Kindergarten was to help create an environment where instruction drew from the children and unfold as thinkers, knowledge builders, and investigators through self-action. This sets the stage, the perspective for all the learning that is to follow. Froebel insisted that teachers guide children in their own learning and not impose upon them the thoughts and the results of others' investigations. The notion in this legislature that somehow kindergartens take up part of the burden of the first grade program, which can easily be covered in half the time or delayed, is rooted in ignorance. Today, Frobel's ideas are even more popular. Some advanced states have extended his notion to nursery schools, and even we have appropriated his basic teachings in better quality daycares. It's interesting that attempts to have the Prussian decree rescinded were futile. The Prussians wouldn't blink. It wasn't until believers in kindergartens appealed directly to parents, turning them into kindergarten associations, that enough pressure was exerted and the decree was withdrawn in 1860. The stir created by banning kindergartens gave them much more publicity than they would have received. They emerged much the stronger. Will history repeat itself? We can only hope and work. Thank you.
Member for Red Deer South.
Mr. Speaker, it is with a great deal of pleasure and pride today that I rise in the Assembly to pay tribute to those from the city of Red Deer and the surrounding communities who last week hosted the 1994 Briar. The 1994 Briar attracted the second largest attendance in Briar history with over 130,000 people in attendance.
Good one, good one.
The Centurion Building, funded in a large part by a $21 million contribution from Alberta Lotteries, is truly a world-class facility. But as nice as those facilities are, this tribute is to those who helped to make the 1994 Briar the success that it was. On behalf of the Government of Alberta, I would like to thank and congratulate Mr. Al Gehrig and the organizing committee who have spent the past 2 years working on this event. Thank you and congratulations to the hundreds of volunteers who freely gave of their time.
Yes.
You folks simply did an outstanding job. I would also like to acknowledge the corporate sponsors, both nationally and locally, as well as individual sponsors. And Alberta Lotteries was proud to be one of those sponsors. These sponsorships were critical to making the Briar happen, and the economic benefits to the city of Red Deer, surrounding communities, and indeed to all of Alberta are a good return on the investment. I would also like to acknowledge and thank the curling teams from the provinces and the territories of Canada for their fine skill and sportsmanship. And lastly, I would like to thank the fans who came from near and from afar. We appreciate your support for the game of curling. It was a pleasure to host you.
All right.
Honourable Member for Edmonton Highlands Beverly.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. For many years now, healthcare professionals and the general public have talked about the need for our healthcare system to focus on the prevention of illness and the promotion of health rather than treatment and acute care. Each one of us is born with either a greater or lesser potential for a long life and good health, but there's no doubt that lifestyle, behaviors, and the degree of personal responsibility accepted by each of us has considerable influence on the length and quality of our lives. All of this talk simply means that we each need to take personal responsibility for doing the things that make us healthy. Social contact, supportive families, regular exercise, and a healthy physical environment are all important, particularly for seniors. The Highlands Beverly riding I represent is blessed in many ways. The south boundary borders on the riverbank from the inner city to the eastern limits of Edmonton. The beautiful North Saskatchewan River has good trails and picnic grounds on each bank as a result of development under the Capital City Parks program. 4 footbridges allow entry to both sides of the bank. Hikers, bicycles, cross-country skiers, and all those people just out for a leisurely stroll are there all the time. Our constituency has pockets of high density where thousands of people of all income levels and all ages live in walk-ups, high-rises, condominiums, as well as single-family dwellings. But most people can get to the valley without using a car or public transit. And the trails are busy during the daylight hours all year long. Parks in this province, both rural and urban, are our priceless heritage, and they must all remain available at no charge to every citizen in this province.
honourable member for Edmonton McClung on a point of order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise under Beauchesne 417, which is the rule relating to the prohibition against answers that would provoke debate, and I'm referring, of course, to the Treasurer's earlier presentation in the legislature that somehow he construed the Liberal caucus in years past as overspending their budget. I should point out to the House that this is very surprising for two reasons. The most significant reason is that it is impossible for the Liberal caucus to do that. Were we to overspend our budget, we would have to write a check on our personal accounts, that is, each of us as individuals, to pay for over-expenditure. Unlike this Treasurer and his predecessor, unlike the government of which he has been a member for 7 years and a member of the Cabinet for 7 years, we are unable to borrow against the public purse in order to pay for over-expenditure. It is logically and physically impossible for us to overexpend our budget, Mr. Speaker, and if this Treasurer understood that, he wouldn't have stood in this House and made such an outlandish claim. What's more disconcerting, Mr. Speaker, however, is that in fact he must be indicating, by virtue of the argument that he made, that he does not understand the controls that he has in place over expenditure categories like the Liberal caucus opposition, which makes us question whether he really understands whether he has controls over his own expenditure elsewhere.
No, he doesn't.
It is secondly, Mr. Speaker, it is particularly surprising to hear this allegation from a Treasurer who was 7 years a member of a cabinet that ran up a $30 billion deficit, that brought in 8 consecutive deficit budgets. A Treasurer who aspired to that position, and the first year he took that position on, overexpended the people of Alberta's government budget by $3.7 billion, followed that up with a $2.5 billion deficit over expenditure, and has predicted, Mr. Speaker, in his third year as Treasurer that he will borrow yet another $1.5 billion to overexpend.
The honourable member, the chair has listened patiently to the honourable member. The honourable member has digressed substantially from his original appointment.
I would like to summarize by saying we were able to transfer some funds from constituency office budgets to caucus office budget well within the criteria that are laid out by his own controls. That the fact that we haven't overexpended ever has been confirmed by the clerk of this House, who is far less political, obviously objective, and not political like the Treasurer. It is, Mr. Speaker, however, very, very surprising to hear these kinds of allegations given this Treasurer's track record and his overwhelming aspiration in his wildest dreams not to be the Treasurer that he is, but to be the second Sir Roger Douglas from New Zealand.
Provincial Treasurer on the point of
Mr. Speaker, I have to respond to the remarks of the charmer across the way. And I want, Mr. Speaker, I will file this with the Assembly when I get copies made by the pages. But I will go back to the 8990 public accounts, where in statement number 3.1.3 at page 3.5, it clearly spells out at vote and reference number 1.0.7 that the Liberal Party services budget was $448,880 for the year. They overspent that amount by $68,329. Mr. Speaker, in the following year, at public accounts, statement number 3.1.3 at page 3. The Liberal Party services were budgeted at $525,658, and Mr. Speaker, they came in $19,447 over budget. Mr. Speaker, At the public accounts for 91-92, at statement number 3.1.3, page 3.5, it states, Mr. Speaker, that the Liberal Party services were budgeted at $551,941, and they came in, Mr. Speaker, at $564,659, $12,718 over budget. And finally, Mr. Speaker, in the most recent public accounts, filed before this Assembly earlier than they ever have been filed, Mr. Speaker, so that the proof of Liberal overspending is on the record. It spells out, Mr. Speaker, in the public accounts audited by the Provincial Auditor General, who you, Mr. Speaker, hosted at lunch this afternoon in a very nice reception for the retirement of the Auditor General, but I noticed that the leader of the Liberal Party wasn't invited to lunch, Mr. Speaker, and we know why, Mr. Speaker. But it says again, perhaps it's because the Auditor General pointed this out in his report, where he showed that in 1992-93 at statement 2.1.3 that the Liberal opposition services were budgeted to spend $527,539, Mr. Speaker. They came in over budget by well over $22,000. So, those are numbers that I will file with this Assembly today. They are on the record, and as for the honourable member's suggestion that we are in any way out of order, these are the facts, Mr. Speaker. They speak for themselves. They speak about Liberal overspending, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Redwater wishes to speak on the point of order.
Mr. Speaker, I know you have to cut it off. It's on the point of order. The honourable member spoke twice, and we spoke once, and I'll be the second one, and I'm sure Mr. Speaker will cut it off. But I wish the Treasurer would file the other side of the sheet. You know, this is rather interesting. When he files a statement, he forgets the deficit. When he files a statement from over here, he only remembers the deficit. Read the income side. It's not the budget side. The income side will show a transfer from the MLAs, there was 8 at one time, and from the others, over to the budget that more than equals. It's not unusual, Mr. Speaker. It's not unusual. It's not unusual for a treasurer. It's not unusual for a treasurer to be blind in one eye, Mr. Speaker. Okay. But he is only reading one side of the tape. I know as a right-winger, he doesn't go over and read the income side.
Order. This is order. The chair finds this to be a classic disagreement amongst members as to facts, and therefore there is not a point of order. Orders of the day.